Okay, finally, we are on air now. Yes, on stage. It's not stage, it's online with us, Eli Matavi, with his topic how blockchain is driving ROI in various industries, real use cases, and full deployments of blockchain in corporate business processes. Stage is yours. Go ahead.
Thanks so much for having me. I am thrilled to be here. So as mentioned, I'm Ali Madavji, managing partner at Blockchain Founders Fund. And we're here to talk to you about how blockchain is driving ROI in various industries. So I'm just going to load up the presentation for you. All right. So let's just make sure this is working all right. All right. So, in this talk, one of the things from, speaking with not only different entrepreneurs in the space, but as well as a lot of, corporates, a lot in academia, a lot of people are always asking about what are some of the real use cases that are going on. And so what we're actually covering here is, what's actually happening across the blockchain space. What are some of these real deployments? Who's actually driving ROI in this industry? And this includes across supply chain, identity management, the banking and finance sector, also looking at areas like securities management, insurance, real estate, um, as well as academics and career, entertainment, and the social impact sector. So, we do write quite often across a number of top magazines, all around the world, including areas such as INSEAD Knowledge, which is one of the leading business schools and their publication, as well as a number of other publications around the world. Now over here to start off, these are the blockchain technology use cases in organizations worldwide, and this is actually a survey done by Deloitte and Touche of 1,053 senior executives. And as you can see, supply chain showed up as the #1 area of blockchain according to business executives. Internet of Things and digital identity were close seconds and thirds, along with digital records. But what you do see is things that are typically perceived as very good use cases, such as voting, showing up quite low on this survey at 12%. That's primarily because voting's not used in corporates. So they are not, entities that use sort of democratic sort of structures. Therefore, voting is actually quite low, although it is a very good use case for blockchain. And we're going to start off first off with supply chain, and then dive deeper into some of the other areas. And so JD Chain. So this is actually out of China with Jingdong, which now tracks 60,000 product SKUs for 700 brands with 6 million after-sales queries. And so this is fully live, as you can see from the screenshot over here. There is plenty of interest, traction, and usage of this. And so what they're tracking and using is 5 key areas. So the data ledger, they've got consensus protocols, cryptographic algorithms, data storage, and APIs. They are able to do about 10,000 transactions per second. This is still low for when you look at the amount of transactions per second that do come out of China. There is a need to continue to increase this. I mean, to put it into perspective, if you look at something like Singles Day in China, there is a need to be able to do hundreds of thousands of transactions per second to meet kind of the full demand, that might be coming. But, a good start nonetheless. And they also have anti-counterfeit measures in here, which has generally been a problem in countries all around the world, with goods being sold. And what's also quite interesting here is they've standardized this for asset-backed securitization. And there are multiple investment banks that are involved here as well on looking at how to actually package assets and help resell them to free up cash flow. And so that's quite an interesting piece of this JD chain. Pandemic tech. So over here, this is looking at the tech that's being used to help with the current pandemic of COVID-19. So you can see contact tracing is a big area to track infectious areas. And so in China, this has actually been used, enabling earlier detection of an outbreak and facilitate accurate reporting of future outbreaks. It is being used to secure electronic health records of patients in hospitals and in certain cases. And they're looking at keeping track of those patient records and suspected new cases and receiving real-time information that hastens treatment procedures. What was quite interesting about this is so it's a WeChat mini program access pass that uses QR codes to enable residents to enter gated communities. And this was quite interesting because it was actually stated that the data essentially couldn't be accessed or used in ways that maybe was not desired, and and a number of other factors that were brought up on the fact that the data wouldn't be available longer term, and it would actually be deleted. This doesn't seem to follow, the properties of blockchain, while it has been said that it is using blockchain, and so there are some concerns even on how blockchain is being leveraged for some of the benefits by name, but uncertain really on the full way that this essentially works, and there is very little information on it. But I find that it's an important use case to be sharing, just so that people are aware, how companies are leveraging essentially the benefits of blockchain and some of the name recognition of it, but without seemingly having all of the properties that we might think would come with a blockchain. So we've also got COVID-19 claims that are live right now using blockchain. And so insurance firms in China have been using blockchain to manage and process large volumes of COVID-19 related claims. So for example, Ant Financial, as you can see from the screenshot over here, is actually paying out claims on its Shanghu Bao platform. And the main goal of this was to reduce in-person contact, paperwork, and document deliveries. And so this is something that is live over the past couple of months. Now, a personal, one that I find very fascinating is how HSBC has been leveraging blockchain. And so the FX Everywhere platform has now settled over $1.2 trillion worth of trades. And they've made about 11.6 million trades over the last about year and a half or so, I believe. And some of the key benefits that they're finding is payments orchestration, balance sheet optimization, and singularity, as well as transparency and immutability. And so HSBC actually came out and said that the FX settlement that's happening over here has saved them about 25% versus the traditional method before they were using a blockchain. And so this is very fascinating, very important growth that we're seeing, very important savings that we're seeing that's driving ROI. And in our opinion, it's a very short period of time before the rest of the banks adopt it for these sorts of measures, given the very strong benefits that HSBC has actually been seeing. We are seeing a number of interesting things happening in the blockchain space in terms of alternate banking services and payment processing. For example, Rapids is one of the leading digital wallets across Southeast Asia and has actually formed, for example, public company partnerships with companies like Major Group, which is a public company in Thailand that manages McDonald's and Cineplex and things like that. You do have Banks Group in the UK, which has been making some pretty strong headway in terms of increasing access to credit cards to be able to save funds as well as spend funds more effectively. And then companies like FB Banking Group, which has been very effective on rolling out security tokens in Southeast Asia and other sort of banking and finance related products. And ARF, which is doing B2B settlements of remittances, and has recently been part of the Visa Innovation Program. Over here, we've got the first Ethereum security, and so a lot of people have been looking at security tokens. I would say this has been one of the most interesting recent developments, and there's a number of different ones to choose from. But this is a $40 million security raised by Fatburger, and it got rated by Morningstar. And I thought this was quite an important development for the space. And And basically, they're looking at a shorter forecast performance period, faster access to data due to increased transparency, due to using a security token, and higher visibility. And so this, I think, brings a lot of interesting visibility to the security token space with a brand like Fatburger, which is, a place that many of us, may have visited or had a delicious burger when we were allowed to go outside. But definitely something to keep watching is how the security token space develops. But this is a quite a large evolution, I think, over the last little while on that. The agricultural technology space. So in ag tech, it has been a fascinating space. This is a space that has 50% of GDP in developing regions. But what's been interesting is agricultural lending has been less than 2% of their loan portfolios. And this is something that impacts 500 million smallholder farming families or households, which is about 2.5 billion people. So quite substantial in terms of the impact and reach of agricultural production, as most people would know. And so what Agrio does, which is quite fascinating, they're based out of Brazil and South America, and they create credit profiles for traditionally underserved farming families through risk intelligence and predictive yield algorithms. And so, for example, they use things like satellite imagery, they use geospatial mapping, soil moisture, and then they work with financial institutions to help reduce the risk of their loan portfolio, as well as increase their ability to lend to farming families or farming households by essentially eliminating the need for collateral, as future yields could be collateral today. And they've actually got pilots going with some of the largest agricultural companies in the world, and something definitely to watch on how this space evolves, and blockchain's at the heart of that. Alibaba climbs the chain, and this has been quite fascinating. So Alibaba filed for 470 blockchain patents in 2019, and recently introduced a system to track, music copycats. And so basically, what they're looking for is originality analysis, and then produces a ratio of how similar that is. No one's doing that exactly in terms of this way, and so this is quite fascinating of a use case for Alibaba. But I do think the media entertainment space has been particularly interesting, especially music tech, and that leads to the next question. So BeatDap is a music tech player solving a $4.5 billion in the problem in the music industry. And so what they do is they're essentially looking at the self-reported streaming services and the play counts that they're making. And so typically what happens is reported plays versus actual plays, there's typically a 15% discrepancy, and that leads to missing royalties for artists and labels. And this is quite an important problem. And so they're working with a number of leading companies, and working with and closing right now some digital streaming service providers, and looking at how to roll that out effectively to ensure that these differences are minimized and reduced, and ensure that artists and labels are getting their fair share. And I think that increases a lot of transparency and brings a lot of the benefits of blockchain to the music industry. With All Rights, they're on the content distribution side for TV and film content, and this is typically an industry where it's been manual in the past, taking up to 12 months, and 40% of revenues, going through kind of hoops with middlemen or brokers. And All Rights brings that all into a more digital sort of format, and has some very, very big names that all of us would have heard of, that actually buy content from them in order to distribute effectively in their regions. In the gaming sector, this has been also one of my favorites. Looking at blockchain has been growing very substantially, especially with COVID and in these times. It just seems like most of us, while we're on Zoom calls, perhaps are playing some games at the same time. So this is a sector that's projected to be worth over $2.3 billion by next year. And you do see millennial gamers being 11 times more likely to buy cryptocurrency than non-gamers. And so Splinterlands, which is one of our portfolio companies, is the #1 DApp globally. There's been over 16 million games played, and the value of NFTs have surpassed $5 million. And so this is something definitely to watch. If you don't play it, feel free to tweet at us, and we'll see if we can help get you started. But definitely exciting to be able to not only have aspects of the traditional gaming world, but bringing in things like uniqueness and collectability into that, so that your time is well spent and you can be earning very valuable collectibles as part of that journey.
Okay, Ellie,
Yeah.
are you ready to go to the finish because our time is over? Just
Yeah, so just wrapping up.
okay.
And so in the education sector, looking at degrees and transcripts being protected. So for example, you might be aware MIT's Dean of Admissions had fake degrees in a fake degree before. And so this is what it actually looks like in a live scenario. So INSEAD, one of the leading business schools, does have their degrees and transcripts on blockchain. And finally, social impact, looking at how to reduce the cost of remittances by to at most 3%. And this is something that we've been working on with the United Nations very closely. And so to wrap up, thanks for listening in, and hope you enjoyed that and going through a number of very specific use cases of where blockchain is having an impact. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to hear from interested people in the blockchain space and what they're doing, as well as from leading entrepreneurs and seeing if there's something that we can help them along their journey. So thank you so much for taking the time, and hope to hear from you soon.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for you. Yes, nice to meet you here. Yes, our respect to your speech as well. Yes, see you a little bit later. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Okay.